Padraig Harrington joins us now. He's got a chance to defend himself. Patty, great to see you. I imagine pretty cool to win on the same day as Shane. How would you describe your relationship with Mr. Lowry?
Yeah, it was cool. I got to see him win before I went out. I saw him play 18, fantastic shot. So yeah, that sort of buzz when you see a friend winning, it does help you. It does help you get on. And we are a little bit competitive with that Christmas party, who has the best year. So there might be a bit of toing and froing at the end of the year, whether it's the best year financially or the best year winning. I have texted him that he needs a few more wins maybe before the end of the year, because I intend to have a couple more wins too. So we'll see how we get on. But both of us, we know we've had a good year, and that's what it's all about. As I said, when you do have wins, you've got to go and enjoy them. 20 years ago, I might have won. I might have sat in the hotel room on the Sunday night and be thinking about my golf swing for the next day. But you realise when you're long enough in this game, the wins don't happen anywhere near as often as you think. So you want to make sure you enjoy them when they do happen.
I'm curious how your attitude to celebrating your wins has changed. Speaking of picking up drinks tabs, you did that in Sioux Falls in South Dakota at the weekend when you won, Padraig, with caddies. The Champions Tour tweeted out that picture, and you were also accused of being a pool shark with the caddies the same night. Do you celebrate and enjoy your victories more now than you would have at your peak? Or how has the attitude changed, really?
My attitude's changed. I celebrate my tour a lot more now. That's actually, I have a bad neck, so I can't quite get down as low as I would like to on the pool table. But I would have paid any good money for that reputation that I'm a pool shark. So I think they bigged me up a little bit there. I think, look, you realise once you play a long time, even I would have been burnt out in the game in 2016, just trying too hard. So the only way to rationalise it, and I love playing golf, but I had to make it more enjoyable for me out on tour. So I take every opportunity. I got invited to that caddies party last night. And, back in the day, I might have gone, I've got to go to the gym. I've got to go do this. I've got to eat early, whatever. Now I've been going, I'll change my plans. I'm going to go out and have a good time and enjoy myself, because that's the only way. And the Champions Tour is good that way. It is a bit more relaxed out here, so you can enjoy yourself. You're not under as much pressure. I found on the PGA Tour particularly, just the depth is so strong on the tour. You're just grinding and working so hard. It's so tight. You travel Monday, from Tuesday morning onwards, you're putting in the time, the effort, and it just bears down on you. And it's very, very tight in the PGA Tour. I've seen it where, you could have a putt to go 5 under on Friday morning, and you're inside the top 10. You're close to 2 shots off the lead. You miss that putt, you bogey the next thing you're 1 shot away from the cut line. That's a lot of stress and pressure. Whereas the Champions Tour is a bit more relaxed, and certainly it's helping me find a new lease of life, a better way of enjoying it. But I do like the reputations. It's amazing in life. If you have a reputation for getting up early, I have that beautiful reputation for hitting golf balls, and I mightn't hit a shot for the next 5 years, and I'd still have a reputation as practicing. And the other reputation on drinking is a very good one too. Yeah, you can get away with a lot.
Well, Padraig, that's what's so interesting to me, is because a lot of guys turn 50, but not everyone makes the transition to PGA Tour Champions and continues to win. You've done that 3 times since June. What have you learned about your game, if anything, during this run?
Well, first and foremost, a lot of things have changed as regards to Champions Tour in terms of players. I'd be the first sort of level of player now coming to the Champions Tour who would have had the uptick in money from 96 onwards. So I would have had a full-time physio with me. I would have had trainers with me. So all that sort of stuff means that I'm getting to 50 a lot physically fitter and ready to go than my predecessors, who just wouldn't have had, financially just wouldn't have had the facilities I would have had over the years. So you will see a change in the next. Like, I look at the guys following me, and they're pretty young guys, even though they're hitting 50. They're physically pretty young, so it's definitely, we're more competitive at 50. As regards my own game, I think I kind of explained it like this: if I play a PGA Tour event and say I finish 20th, people will come up and say, "Well done, you had a good week," and you're probably 6-7 shots off the lead at 20th, and you kind of go, "Well, How do I bridge that gap? Well, I better go to the range and work on my golf swing. Whereas if I play a Champions Tour event and I finish 2 shots back, I go home and I go, oh, how do I bridge that gap? Well, I made a mistake mentally on that tee box. I did that wrong. My short game, I just didn't chip and put that hole when I was under pressure. So you tend to focus on different things when you're at the top of the pool, let's say, a big fish in a small pond. So I'm sharpening up my mental game no end on the Champions Tour. And I did start putting better the last couple of years on tour, I will say. And that sort of stuff is coming to fruition now, maybe on the Champions Tour. And the one other thing, during COVID, I did a lot of Paddy's golf tips. And my caddy keeps reminding me so many times now. He says, what would you have said to the amateurs? What do you say to the amateurs every week in the Pro-Am? What do you say? That's what you should be saying to yourself, because I'd be, especially in the Pro-Ams, I'd be giving out to the amateurs, telling them this is what you should be thinking about. This is what you should be doing. So, from those Paddy's golf tips, I kind of have to take a sip of my own medicine and pay attention to what I tell other people and do it myself.
Look, I read a comment from you, Padraig, that the confidence that you've drawn from how you're playing on the PGA Tour Champions has given you the belief that you can still compete against guys on the regular tour. Do you plan to test that theory anytime soon?
I'm going to play the Dunhill in 2 weeks' time, which is one of my favourite events. It is my favourite event of the year. I've got to say, well, there's other great events. It's one of my favourite events. So, yeah, I'm not going to put myself under too much pressure that I have to go out and play one event and see how I am. But I physically, I'm well capable. I hit the golf ball as well. I hit the ball better than I've ever hit it in my career. I hit it as far or further, actually further for sure. I strike it better. It's the mental nerves, when it comes down to it. In the end of the day, especially if you come out here in Champions Tour, everybody's really good out here in the Champions Tour, but we're all managing something in our game. The question, will I be able to bring that to the main tour and manage that? When there's obviously more stress. You can have an 8-footer, as I said, in the Friday, and like you're putting it like it's the difference between you going home or winning the tournament. Whereas on a Champions Tour, you have an 8-footer for birdie, and you kind of going, well, I'm going to have another one in a few holes time or the next hole. So you tend to hold it more because it's not life. It doesn't feel like it's life or death. It doesn't feel like I can take more body blows on the Champions Tour. On the main tour, I feel like I can win, but I also feel like in order to win, I have to be absolutely on the limit. I don't feel like I can take any bad breaks or any mistakes, which inevitably leads to more mistakes.
You talk about your reputation that you have as someone who's worked so hard on his game. I don't know who's hit more golf balls in the history of the world than you, Vijay Singh and Gary Player. Why does this game still speak to you after so many tournaments and so many practice rounds and all of the miles traveled?
Yeah, well, as I said, I was burnt out. Probably 2016, I was, most careers last about 20 years, and I had hit a wall. I did some commentary. I did probably a bit of coaching, and I realized I actually really love golf. I like what's involved in golf in the terms of playing tournaments, playing tournament rounds, competing, and I really like practicing. The idea of getting up in the morning and that I might find the secret. Like every shot I hit, when you go to the range, all your thoughts about what's going to happen in the future, the enthusiasm, the optimism is there. If you lose a tournament and you're sitting there on a Sunday night, you can be depressed in your room. You can be like, I messed that up. But the minute you hit a practice shot, you're thinking forward. You're always going forward. And I love that. So what I've done in my golf is really I've got rid of a lot of the superfluous stuff that would have stressed you out, and concentrate on the stuff that I like doing. And I probably learned this more because I went back and played a few European events around 2016, 2015, 16, 17. And this was the run. I missed the FedEx Cup playoffs one year, and I went back to Europe. I played Prague, Crom, Montana, Hamburg, Amsterdam, and London. Like, how could you not enjoy that trip? Like, and this is, and I know in golf the European players are screaming out for this. If we can go and play the big cities in Europe, the capital cities in Europe. It is, the golf is great. You play golf and there's great golf courses, but when you're in the big cities, you're living a life. You know, it's not the same sometimes when you're, you know, if you're outside, an hour from the city, you're outside, you know, it's all about the golf. At times you can go play events, and that opened up a new, you know, I realized, hey, I can still enjoy this. And I had some Irish friends out there on tour as well, so it just made it for more crack. And, you know, when you're out there enjoying it, you realize, yeah, this is a life you want to keep having.
Padraig, Shane Lowry seemed to be the guy who provided so much emotional energy last year when you were captaining the European Ryder Cup team at Whistling Straits. Now he's won the first event for qualifying for Rome a year from now. But we heard from Rory this morning saying that he doesn't necessarily think live guys ought to be part of the fixtures and fittings of that European team next year. Shane seemed to signal the same attitude. Do you have any prediction on what that landscape's going to look like a year from now?
Yeah. You know, I think I've talked a little bit about live, that I believe the majors are above everything, and they should stay out of it. And whoever qualifies for the majors deserve to play in the majors. When it comes to the Ryder Cup, I don't have an answer. I really don't. It's very complicated. You know, is the Ryder Cup bigger than tours and it's a separate entity, or is it representative of the tours? Now, I grew up and the Ryder Cup was the European Tour versus the PGA Tour. We had a chip on our shoulder, and it was our way of, you know, proving a point that we're every bit as good as the PGA Tour. That's, you know, if you look at it on a European Tour versus the PGA Tour, it should be only the players who are European members should play. If you see it as something Europe versus the States, well, then it's a separate entity. It's a very hard one to balance. And I don't necessarily, even though the trouble about it is the decision now, obviously there's been a little bit of change in the guard in Europe, so it's not as big. It'd be a bigger deal in the PGA Tour, which I think they'll be pretty clear in their decision. Europe, you know, it's not as big a deal for the moment, but it could be a massive deal in 5-6 years' time. You know, it's quite possible that the top European at that stage could be on live. Who knows? So, yeah, I don't know how they're going to deal with it. But to me, do you see it as Europe versus the States, or do you see it as the European Tour versus the States? And, you know, if live does become normalised, you know, maybe the biggest thing in golf in 20 years' time is going to be, God forbid, and you don't want me to say this, but, you know, in 20 years' time, it might be live versus the PGA Tour as a Ryder Cup style match, which obviously would damage the Ryder Cup. But, you know, there's nothing like a little bit of niggle in a match in order to make it something for people to watch, that's for sure.
Well, there are a lot of unknowns, which makes this time so fascinating. We talked to Paul McGinley a couple of weeks ago. He said he thinks that the DP World Tour, and he does sit on the board, but he thinks that the tour is in a strong position because of the Rolex Series, because of the prize money higher than ever, because of some of the cities that you mentioned. Are you of a similar belief that the DP World Tour is in a good position going forward, despite some of the defections that we've seen to live?
Yeah, I'd like to. It's hard to stomach that we're a feeder tour. You know, as I said, there was always that image with the Ryder Cup. We knew we weren't as good as the PGA Tour, but we didn't have to say it. People would say it, and factually it was correct. But, you know, we felt in Europe, no, we're every bit as good. Being a bit of a feeder tour, we got to stay ahead of the Corn Ferry. That's in my head. We've got to be seen as the place to go. If you're not on the PGA Tour, the European Tour is the place to go. And I will say, for any player in the world, if you want to learn about yourself and learn how to play golf, come play the European Tour. You will be a better golfer for it. Brooks Koepka is a good example. You would be traveling to European cities. You'll learn a little bit about yourself. You'll learn how to live your life. But, you know, the golf is competitive. It's really good. You're playing different environments. You're playing against different styles of players. I see players in the States chasing the mini tours because it's easy to go down the road and play a mini tour event, whereas they'd learn a lot more and become a better player by coming to Europe. So if we in Europe can establish ourselves at least as the second choice tour, you know, I can live with that. But if we fall behind, you know, I think that would be disappointing.
Sage advice from one of the best to ever do it. Padraig, thanks for the time. Congrats on 3 wins in 7 starts. We'll speak to you again soon.
Thanks, guys.